All right, A to Z Sports. We are live post-game show, A to Z Sports post-game show. The Titans lose in Cleveland 27-3 is the final score, and you see it in the title, in the headline there. An embarrassing performance for the Tennessee Titans. They fall to 1-2 at the hands of the Cleveland Browns. Sam Phelan, Jack Gentry here with our kind of in the moment reactions just moments after this game wraps up. So got, a ton to go over. We're going to go over Ryan Tannehill's play, figure out what's going on with this offensive line, and address all of the issues and frustrations I'm sure all of you Titans fans have. So, Jack, welcome in. Wish it was under better circumstances, and tell the folks what they got to do.
Yeah, absolutely. While you guys are trickling in, I know all of y'all have opinions about that game, and we're going to dissect this loss in just a minute. But we've got to remember, we want to grow this conversation. We want to hear from the Titans fan base. I want to take the temperature of all you guys after another ugly performance on offense for the Tennessee Titans in 2023. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you tap that bell icon at the top of your screen. Turn those notifications on so every time A to Z Sports goes live, posts any Titans content, you won't miss it. Don't miss out on the newest and up-to-date Titans news. Make sure you turn your notifications on YouTube. If you're watching on Twitch, text that Twitch link to your Titans text groups. I know all of y'all are in them. I know they've been busy today. I know most of those texts have probably been frustrating ones to send today. But we want to grow this conversation, hear from all of you after a 27-3 Titans loss in Cleveland.
All right, let's do it officially. We're going to get to, Super Chat's already coming in. We're going to get to all of this stuff. A lot of complaining and frustrations to air out. We're going to do it. Before we do it, want to thank our partners that powered today's show. They powered our pregame and halftime, and they're making it happen for us right now. So quick shout out to X Golf Nashville, the home of indoor golf in Middle Tennessee. X Golf, play, train, entertain. xgolfnashville.com. The Mint Gaming Hall, home of big jackpots and big fun. 35 minutes north of Nashville. TheMintGaming.com is where you visit them. The law offices of Amanda J. Gentry, wherever justice demands. Tennessee family and criminal courts in 35 counties in Middle Tennessee. AmandaJGentry.com. Chim Chimney for all your chimney needs. Chim-chimneyinc.com. That's chim-chimneyinc.com. Adventure Science Center. Explore and discover your full family adventure awaits at adventurecsi.org. And Jarrett Fire HVAC and Plumbing, keeping your facility comfortable and secure, one inspection at a time. That is jarrettcompanies.com. So, Jack, we were frustrated at halftime. You and I were. We had a lot of grievances to air, and it would seem as if those things just got even worse in the second half. The offensive line continued to be poor. Ryan Tannehill didn't have much of a chance back there. When he did make throws and get them out to receivers, we had dropped passes. We had just more laughable play from the secondary, penalties on Sean Murphy-Bunting, penalties and horrific coverage on Christian Fulton, standing there covering nobody while Amari Cooper has a 47-yard touchdown or whatever it was. The Titans got their clocks cleaned. They got punched in the mouth in every single area of football, including coaching, game planning, all of it. So this is, I think, the ultimate sign of a really bad loss and a really bad game is when I think there's too many places to point the finger for me to even point the finger. Like, I can't tell you who or what unit or what it was that let them down. I mean, it was just bad top to bottom. Your reaction to that absolute mess of a game.
This show would be a whole lot easier if there was one person to point a finger at or one area to point a finger at. But, I mean, it was Christian Fulton and Andre Dillard just taking turns all day getting beat like a drum on their respective sides of the football.
Yeah.
You can't do a whole lot on defense when you're giving up these explosive plays. When, Jerome Ford is wide open because Azeez Al-Shaair gets shook out of his shoes. When Amari Cooper, who should have had 2 touchdowns today, is wide open because Christian Fulton and Amani Hooker can't communicate properly. It was bad in all phases. 8 penalties for 80 yards. The Titans go 2 of 12 on third down. And you talk about not being able to help your quarterback out. Not only was the pass protection bad, but the Titans found themselves on 3rd and 10 plus 7 different times today. Of course you're going to go 2 of 12 on third down if you have 10 plus yards to get. And this is an offense that, Titans fans know what this is. The big play doesn't happen a whole lot for these guys. And we saw it today. And, there was a lot of talk heading into this game about whether or not Jim Schwartz mattered on the Cleveland sideline, calling the defense for them. He was sitting over there laughing because he had the Titans number. He bottled up Derrick Henry, just 20 yards on 11 carries for him today.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So we'll see. I think it's kind of a separate thing. Jim Schwartz obviously mattered because this Browns defense is excellent, and I think Jim Schwartz is an excellent defensive mind. How much of it had to do with his history with the Titans, I don't really know. I'm not sure we'd ever really be able to get.
It's impossible to quantify.
Yeah, we're never really going to be able to get the answer to that, because we're not in the meeting rooms of the Cleveland Browns, and they're certainly not giving away any trade secrets anytime soon as to how they did what they did to stop the Tennessee Titans. But yeah, I see people in the chat already saying hey, Mike Vrabel is overrated. I don't know if this is a Mike Vrabel game as much. It is certainly what I would say is the biggest knock against Mike Vrabel. Continuously a knock against Mike Vrabel is some of the stubbornness that he shows in the process that they go about throughout the offseason, then rears its ugly head in the regular season. And part of that's the cap situation. Part of that's Rand Carthon as well. But you don't have an offensive line. The offensive line was your biggest problem last season, and their offensive line got worse. So, the patchwork BS that they tried to pull off is not going. It's a bad unit. It's the worst unit on the football team. It's a bottom 4 unit probably in football. It doesn't give Ryan Tannehill or Derrick Henry a chance in hell. So, yeah, I mean, this is play stupid games, win stupid prizes, and you saw and identified problems with your football team. You went lazy and cheap in solving those problems, and now you're all surprised, or maybe not surprised, that your left tackle is a turnstile. I mean, they are atrocious up front.
Yeah, gave up 5 sacks today, and maybe when we can't quite figure out who exactly to blame because everything was so bad, maybe our fingers should be pointed at Mike Vrabel, because this team did not look like they were ready to play today. They were running in wet concrete whenever they had the football. And they didn't have the football a whole lot. The Browns dominated time of possession, 38 minutes to 11 and some change for the Titans. So, I mean, everybody looks that way. The coaching deserves to be blamed. And there's, a lot of times coaches and quarterbacks get too much of the blame and not enough credit. But today, everything looked so bad. Again, with the penalties, we saw some of this last week rear its ugly head against the Chargers. 8 for 80 today. It was just so bad in every phase that the only direction I can point a finger at is at Mike Vrabel.
Look, it's interesting because when you have a head coach like Mike Vrabel, and this is the case with most head coaches around the NFL, when you're established as a good head coach, everybody's very quick to absolve you from blame and blame the assistants and the coordinators. And so, right, you have a really bad offense, it must be the OC's fault. You have a bad defense, it must be the DC's fault. And I get it because, at some level, we do feel, and I do feel like Mike Vrabel is a good head coach. And I don't really have doubts about that. But today, when it's as bad as it is across the board, when you're in week 3 of the season and you're still making dumb mistakes in terms of penalties, pre-snap penalties, Jack, I almost lost my mind when you get a 12 men in the huddle penalty on a 3rd down to back you up into 3rd and long. And with as much as this team has talked over and over and over again about we have to be in 3rd and manageable, we can't get behind the sticks, the false starts, the holding, sometimes those are just player execution. 12 players in the huddle, that's on your head coach. And so Mike Vrabel does get a ton of blame for me today, and he should get it from everybody. But that's the problem is I'm just as pissed at Tim Kelly. I'm just as pissed at Shane Bowen and Christian Fulton and Andre Dillard. The only players I'm not angry with are the players who I felt like today was just out of their hands. And that's Ryan Tannehill, DeAndre Hopkins, even Derrick Henry, who was hit before you could even take a step forward.
And that's not really on Henry in a lot of those instances. And my issue with this game is, we talked about in week 1 how The Titans played their worst game of football and lost by 1, right? That was encouraging, at least this, at least in a silver lining fashion.
Yeah.
Well, today the Titans not only win the turnover battle, they hold the Browns, whose whole offense or their whole identity on offense is running the football, to just 2.5 yards per carry. If you tell me the Titans not only win the turnover battle but hold the Browns for less than 3 yards a carry, I think they win.
It was my X factor. Stopping the run was my X factor before the game.
But they had both of those edges and lost by 24.
Yeah.
Unacceptable.
I mean, Deshaun Watson extended plays, finished 27 of 33 for 289 yards and 2 touchdowns. You had a couple big ones to Amari Cooper that really just broke the camel's back here. This was a 13-3 game that had a couple busted coverages that resulted in deep touchdowns. Not an excuse, just kind of, but to what you said, right? You checked off a couple of Mike Vrabel's principles. We'll talk about that later on in the post-game show. You still lost 27-3. A couple super chats here.
It's 2 games, real quick before you get to the super chat.
Yeah.
It's 2 games now. The Titans have played a full 60 minutes and not scored a single touchdown. That's twice.
And they're probably one of the only teams to do that, right? Like 3 points. Wow. 3 points.
I mean, you come off a 27-point effort last week against a really talented Chargers defense, and you finally start to believe that this offense, hey, you know what? Maybe when they're firing on all cylinders, they can beat just about anybody. Yeah. But, I mean, it's a small sample size, but early evidence shows that this Titans offense might be closer to what they did in New Orleans than what they did in L.A.
All right, let's get to the super chats real quick. Danny comes in with $10, says we need to go out and get a bona fide left tackle. And I got tough news, Danny. They're not available. Like, I appreciate the sentiment. I appreciate the super chat, and I agree with you. The left tackle position not being addressed is malpractice on the front office and on the coaching staff. Like, it is next to quarterback, the most important position in the sport, and not doing it all the way in and trying to do patchwork at left tackle is a losing recipe. We've seen it for the last 20 games now that the Titans have played, that you need a left tackle, and this team and this offense has not been the same. This has been a just downhill straight since Taylor Lewan got hurt in Buffalo.
Yeah. Draft props aren't yet up on BetMGM, but whenever they are, go ahead and put your money on a left tackle being taken in the first round.
I can't imagine it's anything else. It can't be that, or you have to pay $150 million. Like, I don't know what you do. You need one so bad. But unfortunately, mid-season, that's not really a problem that you can solve, at least with external options. Noah comes in, $10, says, what happened today is not because of Ryan Tannehill, but because of how he plays now. Mobile QBs help bad O-lines. Ryan Tannehill losing mobility allows defenses to tee off without worrying about contained tough day. Yeah, to some extent. The problems are a lot deeper than Ryan Tannehill can't scramble or can't maneuver like he used to when he was a younger man. But certainly doesn't help them to not have a guy who can break, contain, and just beat a defense with his legs. That's not part of his game anymore. And so when you have struggles of a left tackle who is just letting the defense get pressure on, more than half of the dropbacks that you have, it does not bode well for your quarterback. Darren says the coaching staff really needs rethinking their philosophy. They haven't moved the ball in 2 years besides last week. I think they are rethinking their philosophy a little bit. I just don't think they have the personnel to do it. And I mean, that's as much on them. Like, I don't think not having personnel is an excuse for the coaching staff, because the coaching staff was just as involved in personnel decisions as Rand Carthon was, Jack. But do you think they've shifted their philosophy?
No, not really. They didn't exactly force feed Derrick Henry today because you couldn't. Obviously, it wasn't going anywhere. I think that there are going to be days like today where nothing gets going on either phase. That's where you need a big play to break you out of a funk. And Tannehill took a few shots downfield. Burks had one slip through his hands. Not that it was downfield, but Chig dropped the ball on a crucial third down. He wasn't getting a lot of help, although Chris Moore did bail him out and made a great play mossing a defender in the first half. And, D-Hop had a nice little sequence as well to end the first half. But I just think that until you get an offensive line, it's really going to be hard to do some things. And it's not just a Titans issue. Like
That
we see the
no, that
Cincinnati Bengals with all types of weapons littered across the offense, and they can't win the big one because their offensive line can't protect Joe Burrow. Titans fans know it.
It's weird to have such a complex and so many problems simplified with so few words. But if you cannot protect the passer, you are never going to score points and you are never going to be a winning football team. The Titans don't protect the passer. They haven't in a long time, and they've been bad ever since they stopped doing it. When Ryan Tannehill had protection, when Ryan Tannehill had an offensive line and they could run the ball because of those 5 guys up front, this offense was explosive. This offense was dangerous. This team was one of the best teams in the National Football League. Since they've been unable to do that because they let a lot of those guys walk and a couple of those guys got hurt, and now they're just stuck with patchwork, they've been bad. It's simple, but it doesn't matter who the play caller is, what kind of DeAndre Hopkins you sign or don't sign. If Ryan Tannehill does not have time to pass the ball, it doesn't matter if it's Malik Willis or Will Levis back there. Like, if you cannot protect your passer, you're done for. End of story.
And the alternatives they have at left tackle, I don't know if they would ever flip-flop Hubbard and Dillard. Dillard did play right tackle for the Eagles last year. I don't know if you kick Skoronski out to left tackle. That's putting a lot of pressure on a guy who probably is more built for a left guard spot. You just have to wait for NPF to get back in order to really have versatility and options up front when it comes to the tackle position. You're looking for any way possible to just neutralize Dillard's terribleness, and nothing's worked. They tried chipping. It didn't work.
And they brought in Trayvon Wesco, and he's been bad. Like, he has not done his job really with it either. And your tight ends are weak and have not been consistent as blockers off the edge. And so your chip help is subpar. Like, what else do you do? Your guys are getting beat. Your players are getting beat. You can only say defensively, don't let the ball get thrown over our heads so many times. Like, Christian Fulton's standing there. He's sitting there like just looking around being like, oh, you're going to go guard Amari Cooper, right? No, that's your job, Christian. Go guard him.
The 2 penalties on top of the big plays he gave up. The holding, it was a blatant holding call. And then the pass interference, I thought the pass interference, that gets called maybe 6 out of 10 times.
I thought it was a bad penalty. I mean, he tackled him. I don't care where that ball is. He got beat. The reason, and like, it maybe doesn't get called if he's running lockstep with Cooper the whole way. He got absolutely beat and closed in on him and then hit him, which is just, I mean, it's going to get called. I'm all the way out on him, but somehow he seems like the least of our issues right now. Joseph comes in with $5 and then follows up with another $5 to say, Mike Vrabel, 12-16 in his last 28. Let's start talking hot seat. I don't know when we're going to get there, but I bet you that's a topic. We're going to have this conversation sometime this week on A to Z Sports in the morning. I'll guarantee that right now. We're going to have that conversation looking at the 12-16. We're going to have that talk. So stick around later this week. It's been
ugly.
You might, we're going to have this conversation. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. We're going to have this conversation. We'll save that talk.
I don't want to save it. I think it's ridiculous to put him on the hot seat right now.
Well, I mean, we'll see how the rest of the season goes. But I think the question is, at what point do you like? I have my own opinion, and I'm not really a fan of the hot seat. That's just a little spoiler, I guess. But, we'll see. We'll talk about it. Eric says the last 2 tackles the Titans have drafted were guards, which I think is a fair criticism when you see how bad their tackle play is. That you draft Peter Skoronski, who I think can be a very good tackle, and, they thought, maybe we can go cheap and get Andre Dillard and move Peter Skoronski to left guard. They might have to reconsider that plan when Skoronski comes back. Julius Roberts, $5 says, is this the backdraft of John draft history finally creeping up with us? At least we don't lose as bad as the Broncos, who have given up 70 points right now to the Miami Dolphins. Is this John Robinson's draft history late in his Titans GM tenure biting the Titans? I would say no. I would say maybe a little bit, just in the sense of the cap issues the Titans had with the lack of talent that they had, that Rand Carthon was limited in what he was able to do in one off season trying to clean up for John. And like him having to move on from Cunningham and Dupree and Bullock and all these other veterans, while also not having much coming from, those 21 or 22 draft classes that should have been, part of your replacements at that point. That has hurt what they were able to bring in, and is now hurting the talent on the team.
I understand that, Robinson did leave a bit of a mess behind, but let's face it. I mean, these guys knew what they were up against this offseason. They knew the needs, and they didn't really do a whole lot to address them. And just because Rand Carthon's only been here for 1 year, well, let's look at his draft class and see who contributed today. Skoronski, appendectomy. I'll give him a break for that one. Will Levis is nowhere near ready. Tajay Spears, the only – yeah, exactly. Tajay Spears, the only true impact player from this draft class. Josh Wiley's not doing anything. Jalen Duncan's on the sideline. Colton Dowell's done nothing. So
I mean, has Josh Wiley played a snap?
Last week he played a couple and got in trouble. But I'm just saying, this rookie class hasn't shown much of anything. And it's going to be led by Tajay Spears and Skoronski.
It's part of, I guess, if you want to have criticisms of Rand as well, right? That draft approach, which we talked about at length when he drafted these guys, was like Rand Carthon was trying to draft a class that was going to set the Titans up for a future with what he thought could also be contributing to this year's team. Right now, like you said, I think Peter Skoronski is impactful. Obviously, he's out, appendectomy. Tajay Spears, somewhat useful in games like this. He really kind of goes absolutely silent because, he's a product of the offensive line in front of him to some degree. And you chose not to go offensive line until round 6. You chose not to go wide receiver until round 7. And because you chose not to go wide receiver till round 7, you used a good bit of the free agent money on a wide receiver in DeAndre Hopkins. And so, inactive Colton Dowell, inactive Jalen Duncan, inactive Will Levis, who you traded up to pick 33 to go get. That could have been an offensive lineman. That could have been it. So Will Levis, that pick you cannot call it a success or a failure now. We'll see what Will Levis is 3 years from now. But
it's going to totally define that class. What Levis
right
is
now,
able to do or not
you look at that draft class and you're getting zero production from that class outside of Tajay Spears. And you have to kind of, keep an eye on it. At least it's not a great start.
And this Titans roster isn't in a position to where they can afford only one of the 6 players drafted to pan out. And I know Skoronski will.
I like Skoronski. He's a great player.
But it's just those 2 guys.
Well, but Schreck says they drafted no line in the first round. I'm aware, by the way. They needed more because you're starting Andre Dillard at left tackle. You're starting Chris Hubbard. Your offensive line blows. One offensive lineman was not solving the problems. So you waited on a second offensive lineman for Jalen Duncan in the 6th round. You didn't really go all in on the top tier free agents for it. You said, Daniel Brunskill, that's our answer. No, don't get out of here with that.
Brunskill's not the problem.
Offensive lineman was enough to fix the problems. You're being naive. That's why there's criticism here, because they went with a quarterback that's inactive. He's not a backup. He's inactive. You're not even using him. And they went with that guy instead of offensive line. So what is Will Levis 3 years from now? I don't know. That defines that pick. But if you're looking at the 2023 Titans, what do they need right now? A 3rd-string quarterback or a freaking left tackle?
And that's where I think you were right when you said, Rand Carthon was more drafting for the future rather than drafting for what can help this team now. I think that, the Tannehill contract kind of forced him to make a tricky decision where, you kind of didn't see enough from Malik Willis, at least to inspire you to ever feel confident putting him behind center in a regular season football game. So his hands were tied. They had to take a quarterback this time around. And it's kind of like a sacrifice because you lose a chance at drafting a playmaker at wide receiver. You lose, an opportunity to draft another lineman there. It was a necessary evil, unfortunately, Carthon had no choice but to take a quarterback this time around.
So, I mean, it brings up, right, like the 2023 Titans need to be separate from the Titans' future, because what Rand did in the draft with Tajay, with Will, that could end up being very good and very productive for them long term. But the issue that I always had with this thing was just it was a bold strategy. You have to do it right if you're going to do it, which is this: have your cake and eat it too. Because if this Titans team isn't competitive, Jack, because they didn't fill those needs, well, now I have to say, well, why didn't you just trade Ryan Tannehill? Why didn't you trade Derrick Henry? Why didn't you trade Kevin Byard? Why didn't you go get assets for these guys? Why didn't you make this and all? Why didn't you tank and go get a better draft pick so that you can, solve these problems faster? No, because seriously, when you're at this crossroads of where the Titans were in the offseason, which is some veteran players that can make them competitive and some wanting to get better in the future, I think you need to choose your direction. They chose to try and do both at the same time. But if that fails, that's the worst case scenario.
If you tank, you lose the culture that Mike Vrabel's worked so hard to build. And you've got leaders in there, in KB, in Jeffrey Simmons, and a talented enough defense, and Derrick Henry and D-Hop now brought in. You have too much talent to tank. You can't. That can't even be in the back of their minds. There's too much talent to tank. You would lose some of the leadership. Those guys wouldn't want to stick around for a team that intentionally kind of sunk their season. And I understand everyone wants to see what either Willis or Levis can do, and hopefully one of them shows something in order to trust them moving forward without Tannehill. But as of right now, it's not happening. There was a comment said, why did the Titans have to draft a QB this year? They didn't have to do that. Well, I mean, did you like what you saw out of Malik Willis last year? Are you comfortable bringing Tannehill back again? You have to throw a dart at the board there. And Rand Carthon did it. And like I said, it's a necessary evil. And, you have to figure out a way to hit on the other guys around that pick.
Right. And so, I mean, that's the problem, is that they haven't hit. And so, look, Savage Servant says, Sam, the king of talking after the fact. Yeah, I will put my hand up and say I am absolutely talking after the fact and looking at it in hindsight. And during the offseason, I didn't want them to trade Tannehill. And I thought this was a good strategy from Rand Carthon to try and do both at the same time. I'm willing to own that and say that that was my opinion then. But I also have to look at what I've seen from this team through 3 games and see that these are the same issues. These are the same problems that made them not a competitor last year. And if you can't be competitive, that strategy doesn't work. I liked that strategy in the moment because I thought this team would be more competitive than they have shown. Shrike says it's one game, insanely overreactionary when the AFC South is in the same spot. I don't care where the AFC South is by record.
That's another silver lining because the Jags had a bad day, so you keep pace with them.
That doesn't really matter to me when you're the wins and losses are completely different from how you've lost and how you've looked. I don't see a solution for this team. Maybe they make me eat those words 5 weeks from now.
I think that's a little Jack, prisoner of the moment-ish.
Where is the solution? What's fixing your problems in the secondary and your problems with pass protection right now?
Let's do this. Let's go to one word. I want to hear one word from the chat to describe this Titans loss to the Browns. It was ugly today. I know that there's plenty of words that y'all have that you want to get off your chest, so now's the time to do it. Sam, why don't you tell us about our partners today?
All right, let's do it. Let's talk one word and talk about Amanda J. Gentry. Amanda J. Gentry, wherever justice demands. Go ahead and throw that graphic. A fierce advocate on your side with Amanda J. Gentry, practiced in Tennessee family and criminal courts in 35 counties in Middle Tennessee. She's a Middle Tennessee trial lawyer working for fathers' rights, protecting the fundamental and constitutional right to be a father to your children. Protecting constitutional rights is what Amanda J. Gentry is all about. Middle Tennessee's criminal defense and father's rights attorney. Know your rights, protect your rights, and do not talk to the police without a lawyer. Call Amanda J. Gentry. We asked you guys, we need one word to describe this Titans loss to the Browns. One word to describe the Titans loss to the Browns. We've got B-Bird saying it's devastating. We have embarrassing, terrible, karma, inconsistent, depressing, stinky, pathetic, pitiful, Vrabel, pathetic, losers, bad, embarrassment, disappointed, flawless, irresponsible, ugly, undisciplined, pathetic, familiar, smothered, typical. We got a lot of words. A lot of them mirror each other. Cooked, unwatchable, regression, draft, Kelly, backbreaker. Jack Gentry, give me one word. Which one's sticking out to you?
To me, my word is deflating. I think this was a deflating loss because the Titans were riding high. I mean, you beat a really good Chargers team with plenty of weapons. This defense flexes its muscles in big situations, and the offense converts on third down and in the red zone. And, 7 days later, we see none of that happen. They can't, build on the positives that and some of the stuff that worked from last week. It was everywhere. And the toss plays to Derrick Henry were frustrating. The penalties on offense were frustrating. This was a chance to where, you had a Cleveland Browns team reeling without Nick Chubb on a short week, and you don't show up. You don't get off the bus. So it's deflating to me.
Yeah, I think deflating is a good word. I mean, the 180 from the way that locker room was feeling throughout all of last week, getting the monkey off their back with that win, to coming out and losing in the fashion that they did. I mean, this is a full 180 for the Titans, and I think for the morale surrounding the Titans in 2023 right now. My word is more of an acronym. SSDD. Same stuff, different day for the Titans. They goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's how they lost. It's the constant left tackle problems. It's the constant Christian Fulton getting beat over the top. Dumb penalties in big spots, third and forever. I'm tired of the same thing every single week being the reason they lose. Them looking at my face when I ask them questions in the locker room about what they need to do to fix it. Them saying, can't let the ball get thrown over our heads. Got to make sure we give Ryan enough time. And then they come out and they do the same stuff. It's old. It is tiring. And it's par for the course at this point with the Titans. But this might be what they are as far as they can win games because they have a really good defensive front. They have some playmakers. If they're able to win in the trenches, they can win games. But when you go up against good, stifling defenses like Cleveland, you are going to lose every time.
There needs to be a plan for when Derrick Henry gets bottled up like this, because there's going to be multiple defensive coordinators throughout the season that sell out and stop the run. I mean, Jim Schwartz may have given the rest of the NFL a blueprint on how to stop the Titans offense.
But this is what they had throughout that 7-game losing streak too, Jack. Derrick Henry was getting bottled up, and it looked like teams were basically stacking the box, waiting for the Titans to run the ball so that they could go and lay a hit on Derrick. And it was we'll switch it up, but you can't switch it up because the pass protection's even worse. And so it's it's got to be some combination of quick passes and finding ways to just Ryan Tannehill has to be able to catch the ball, throw the ball. Challenges on Tim Kelly now. Cincinnati is not the worst matchup for them in terms of but Cincinnati has a bad offensive line and not a great defensive line. So
you've got to score more than 3 in order to beat those cats, though.
For sure.
And that, not that one player could have saved the day today. Everybody was so bad all around. I keep saying that. I want everyone to know that nobody really should walk away today with a smile on their face. But the absence of Kyle Phillips, when Derrick Henry is not moving, sometimes you can use the screen game as an extension of the running game. And they don't have that option, really. I mean, Burks and Hopkins are big play guys, contested catch guys. NWI doesn't have that speed. Chris Moore, maybe. They don't really have a guy you can just throw a little screen to, a little tunnel screen, and he runs down the field for 15, 16, 17 yards. Kyle Phillips could be that guy. But unfortunately, he hadn't been on the field a whole lot.
Yeah. Look forward to seeing him back, hopefully, after week 4. Some super chats real quick before I move it along to our next little segment here. Danny says, keep Radens at left guard, move Peter Skoronski to left tackle when he's back. Gonna want to get some answers. I cannot wait for these answers. This is kind of something I'm gonna hammer this home at press conferences and in the locker room and with Titans coaching all week. Do you plan to make a change? And if not, why the heck not? Figure out what they're going to do. Darren says, definitely agreeing with Sam. Should have committed to the tanking. The D may be good, but flipping assists should be a priority. Again, the team does not score. Yeah, look, I was anti-tank during the offseason. Hand up, recognize that. Like I said, if this is what the Titans are, though, there might be some buyer's remorse there, in my opinion, that you didn't do it a little bit sooner.
You just can't tank properly with a defense this good. They're going to keep the Titans offense no matter how bad they are in many more games.
I know. It was a tough spot. I'm just saying, you got to look back on it. And, maybe this is a wild overreaction for one game. I haven't seen it so far to give me like a ton of confidence that this team is going to hit my prediction of 11 wins and, be in that playoffs. Andre says, Sam, hearing you say all the things I said in the offseason, people said I was wrong for saying it. Bad draft, Tannehill, offensive line, receiver, corner, offensive corner, defensive corner, all bad, all issues. Hey, take the win, I guess. Take the win if that's what you were saying in the offseason. I think people, by the way, I just want to get this out there. You're allowed to change your opinion on stuff. You're allowed to say, hey, I was wrong about that, as long as you recognize that this is what I said. Nothing worse than somebody who pretends like they weren't saying something and then tries to look back in hindsight. I'm changing my stance 100% right now, but I'm letting you know that I changed it. And I'm letting you know that I was where I was in the offseason is not how I'm feeling right now, but that's okay.
Here's the thing, though. You can't tear it all down because you're 3 or 4 players away. The Titans have good pieces. They've got a good core. And I know that Derrick Henry may not be here a whole lot longer. And D-Hop,
that's the problem.
Who knows how much he's got left in his tank.
Is that you're 3 or 4 players away right now. But when are you getting those 3 or 4 players? And then are there going to be 3 or 4 more?
Well, the Titans have over $80 million in cap space to use next offseason. I think you cross that bridge when you get there, but you absolutely still have enough to go out and win this AFC South. There's only one other team that you're going to be jockeying with, most likely. We'll see what the Colts do in overtime today.
Colts just won, according to chat. Colts win, says the distinguished gentleman.
You just can't tear it all down. You've got enough to make the playoffs. And by getting in the dance, the Ravens, the team that just lost, they showed that you can make a run as a wild card to a Super Bowl. And you can argue the Titans ceiling all you want, but they've got too much in order to throw it all away.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on here. We're going to look at our pregame X factors. Jack, we mentioned them a little bit briefly earlier in the show. Go over what we each had as the X factor and how those things ended up playing out. But before we do that, want to tell everybody about X Golf Nashville. X Golf Nashville. They are Nashville's home for indoor golf. Play, entertain, and train at X Golf Nashville. They've reinvented the player experience by creating the most accurate indoor golf simulators on the market, giving every person the power to take on the world's top courses in a variety of game formats. And X Golf is good for all different experience levels of golfers. You don't have to be a pro to go play and have fun at X Golf. You can be an amateur, maybe never even picked up a golf club. You can still have fun at X Golf. Follow X Golf Nashville on social media for updates, promotions, and league information, and book online at xgolfnashville.com. Jack, we talked about our X factors. You said, what was your X factor?
Well, I said Tajay Spears is going to be my X factor, and I knew that Henry would probably have trouble getting going. So Tajay Spears, I had hoped for prior to the game, would be a little safety net for Ryan Tannehill. Somebody you can just swing it out to, dump it off, and let him do work after the catch. But, and I talked about how the Browns had given up 8 catches for over 80 yards to running backs coming into today on the 2023 season. But Spears was really never able to get anything going. I mean, He only touched the ball. I guess he did touch the ball
4 catches for 3 yards for Tajay Spears.
That's the thing.
4 carries for 6 yards. So, it was just non-existent. They did try to go to it a little bit, but it wasn't well blocked. And the word that we heard the Titans used to describe this Browns defense all week was fast. they showed it the way they bottled up Tajay Spears.
Yeah, no doubt. Four catches. I like that they're getting him the ball in the passing game, but if it's not blocked well, what does it matter? You want to get him the ball in space. Getting him the ball is just not enough in itself. He's got to be in space. That's where he can do a ton of his damage and, really show why the Titans drafted him in the third round while they already had Derrick Henry. 4 rushes for 6 yards. Wasn't really able to get the edge today. The Browns did a nice job in setting the edge with some of those outside linebackers and defensive ends. And he's not a between the tackles runner, really. At least he hasn't shown that yet.
Yeah.
So that's another point of frustration. I understand Derrick Henry wasn't working. Obviously, he's going to be a focal point for every defensive coordinator coming in. But Spears was really shut down as well, and that kills you because you can't get any production out of the backfield.
My X factor was stop the run. The Titans actually did that, like we mentioned earlier, but you gave up some of those X plays. I know some people in the chat had X plays as an X factor, and the defense got torched with a few of those. Weird game to stop the run and still feel like the defense just didn't really have their best stuff. They didn't get after Deshaun Watson enough. He extended a bunch of plays, which was another thing that, we had in the back of our minds that ended up killing the Titans defense. So our X factors not really didn't really turn out to be X factors. We should have had that more on the offensive line, I guess.
I'll say this. The Titans did a great job against the run, and Deshaun Watson, it's not easy to play against Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson, some of these mobile quarterbacks. The longest rushing attempt that the Browns had all day was 10 yards on a Deshaun Watson scramble. So they did a great job preventing the explosive plays there, but it's just a secondary that seems to rear its ugly head at the worst possible times.
The worst times, yeah. All right, let's move on. We do it every week, and kind of a weird one. I'm interested in seeing where you go and where everybody else goes with this one, Jack. We're grading quarterback. We're grading the quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. What letter grade, Titans fans? How do you grade Ryan Tannehill's performance in today's loss to the Browns? How do you grade Ryan Tannehill's performance in today's loss to the Browns? But want to talk real quickly about our partner, Chim Chimney doing the job right the first time. They're honest, dependable, and affordable. Expertise and experience, priding themselves in knowing everything there is to know about chimney sweeping and repairs. Chimney's team's knowledge and skills have been honed in over the years with dedicated service. When you choose Chimney, you're choosing safety. Services not only enhance chimney performance, but also ensure that your home remains safe from fire hazards and carbon monoxide risks. Their customer testimonials speak volumes about the level of service provided. Chimney always goes the extra mile to make sure customers are happy. It's Chimney. And let's see where you can go visit them. It's chim-chimneyinc.com. chim-chimneyinc.com to go and visit them. Love Chimney. Thank you to them. Jack, we asked the chat, what grade do you give Ryan Tannehill for his performance in the Titans' loss to the Browns? You want to go through the chat, read some of the answers from the people?
Yeah, Dylan Cole surprisingly starts us off with a B-. I don't know what could have warranted that grade. C- from Patrick. Capital Z, says Eric Alonzo. He's just skipping the grading system as a whole and finding the last letter in the alphabet. Josh Maynard says C. F- from Charlie. D from Noah. C- from Jay. Incomplete says Jacob. C- says Derek R. Brian Moore's at a D. Gene's at a C+. F from Scott. Hunter says C. F+++ says Dre Wilson. I don't know if that was supposed to be F-, but we've got a C from Vicky, a D from Ron Lyman, an F+ from D, an F from Titans Overdrive, a C from Yuri, D- from Big Time Timmy Tay, C- from Reitz, D from Robert Baker. So a lot of failing grades today, Sam. And I mean, really the highest we saw outside of that B- was in the C range. So let's start with you. How do you grade Tannehill's performance today?
I don't like my grade, but so the best I can do, C-. Like, I have such a hard time grading this one because I just don't feel like Ryan Tannehill got a fair shot. And frankly, his receivers didn't help him. Like, there was that deep ball to Traylon, should have been caught for a big gain, dropped. Ball to Chig on third down, dropped, led to a punt. Like, not a ton of help. And obviously we talked about just the absolutely no run game, absolutely no pass protection. I don't think Ryan Tannehill, like, he was set up to fail this test. And I think I can't give him better than a C minus because the offense was just that atrocious. But I think he's far from, the problem here. So I will say a C minus for Ryan Tannehill.
I'm going to go a step above and say C. Tannehill was set up to fail today, whether that be the 7 3rd and 10 plus situations that he faced, whether that be with an offensive line that gave up 5 sacks and many more pressures than that, whether it was his receivers not coming up with the ball in critical situations, Traylon Burks, Chigakonkwo. So I think it's a C. I think Ryan Tannehill in himself with no turnovers, it's and no run game going made it hard on Tannehill as well. It's hard. I almost want to give him an incomplete or not applicable.
You could make the incomplete argument, and I wouldn't bat an eye at it.
Yeah, so it's just really hard for him to succeed in an offense that's constantly behind the chains, that constantly is shooting itself in the foot. Like, Tannehill didn't put them in 3rd and 17. Andre Dillard did, and the penalties up front did. So Tannehill's performance without a turnover, I'm not willing to go into that D range.
The sacks, Jack, like, not even sacks that, like, there was a sack against the Chargers where I was like, Ryan Tannehill, get rid of the football. What are we doing?
The one at the end of the first half, he had no shot.
He most of them tonight, he didn't have, like today, he didn't have a shot. Like, he did not have a chance. And some of them, like that one at the end of the first half, directly took points off the board for the Titans. If not 3, maybe 7 points from the Titans. So yeah, like, horrible.
Yeah, it's just it's hard to really grade his performance. I mean, like, he made a couple of good throws down the field, right? And we need him to be accurate down the field in order for the Titans to win, and we have fun in this post-game show. But those weren't enough. I thought D-Hop caught that ball where they had to go to replay and said the play stood. I thought he got his right foot down. I thought there was enough to overturn it. But it doesn't matter when you constantly are setting the Browns up with good field position. Now, Stonehouse did have a good day, but you don't want to see him use that many times. I mean, extend drives, convert on 3rd downs, keep the clock moving. 2 of 12 on 3rd downs. You're going to lose every game you play in this league. It's too hard to win that way.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we can move it on real quick. We have to talk about another thing we mentioned earlier very briefly. It's the winning formula. Mike Vrabel's winning formula. How many boxes did the Titans miss in Mike Vrabel's winning formula in today's loss to the Browns? We'll go over the winning formula and what the Titans did or did not do. But want to tell you, while we're talking formulas, about Adventure Science Center. Adventure Science Center, enjoy unlimited samples of liquor, spirits, cocktails, and learn about the science of alcohol and mixology at Science of Spirits. It's a 21+ event on Friday, September 29th, coming up this Friday. $70 a ticket, but you can, again, samples of liquor, spirits, and cocktails while you learn about the science behind alcohol and mixology. A cool opportunity there at Adventure Science Center. You can also explore and discover with them for the full family, with adventure awaiting at adventurecsi.org. They have an Infinium room for all ages included in general admission, and contemplate the endless concept of infinity. That's Adventure Science Center. It's fun, educational, good for the whole family. And if you want just, an adult's night out, a parent's night out, go to the Science of Spirits 21+ event this Friday night. Adventure Science Center, adventurecsi.org. Jack, got to talk about Mike Vrabel's winning formula. You hear him talk about it all the time. The things that make the Titans a winner. Winning the turnover battle being one of them, something that the Titans did today and still lost. It felt like, and I guess this is what you were talking about off the top, the Titans did a lot of the things that they want to do, at least in terms of, like, not turning the ball over, and yet it got out of hand really bad, which is that even more alarming that you did it?
I think it is.
Because you can look at that Saints game and say, all right, Ryan Tannehill was the problem. Ryan Tannehill cost the Titans this game with the turnovers. But when you don't have one of those big plays and you just get punched in the mouth for 60 minutes, it feels a little bit worse.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. The Browns were just completely better than the Titans in all 3 phases today.
Yeah.
That kind of does breed a hopeless feeling within this fan base, I think. And we're seeing some of that frustration spilling over into the chat. But yeah, like when you lose this way, you kind of just have to burn the tape, don't you? I mean, sure, you can go look back and
we hear
say,
that phrase all the time, bury the tape. They actually need to bury the tape.
But I think that they need to take a good hard look at this, because what Jim Schwartz exposed the Titans for today, many defensive coordinators on this schedule are going to look to emulate as the season drags on.
Yeah.
And everyone in the league knows that the key to stop the Titans is stopping Derrick Henry. So the Titans have to find a counterpunch. They've been looking for that counterpunch ever since A.J. Brown left and haven't found it. Is that D-Hop? Is that deep shots to Traylon? Is that Chig over the middle? Is that Tajay Spears? You've got to figure that out. You're 3 games in, and you still have no idea who to go to if the king isn't able to eat.
Yeah, for sure. Other things like running the football, things that the Titans value, part of Mike Vrabel's winning formula, certainly not there for them today. When you can't run the ball, you can't really do play action either. And so, you can prevent turnovers all you want, win the turnover battle. If you can't move the ball, none of it really going to matter in the end. Jack, wrapping up here, going to take a look around the AFC and the AFC South and get a look at some of those results. But before we do that, want to talk about Jarrett Companies, your Middle Tennessee fire and HVAC protection experts. We've got comprehensive fire safety solutions from Jarrett Fire, from installation to inspections and maintenance. They've got you covered. That means sprinklers, alarms, extinguishers, etc. If you've got it, they can do it. Both maintenance, inspections, and installations. They have industry-leading experience with over 75 plus years of experience for their technicians. They're technicians certified and trained to the highest of standards. They have customized plans and tailor fire safety solutions to meet your facility or family's unique needs. And their team is available 24/7 for emergency services. Always good to have that when it comes to safety and things that you're putting in your home. So Jarrett Fire, 24/7, available for your fire protection experts over at Jarrett Fire. Jack, let's take a look real quick around the AFC South, because in first place at 2-1 is the Indianapolis Colts, who defeated the Baltimore Ravens in overtime.
Yeah, while that is an AFC South win, and you don't want to see any of your divisional rivals hitting the win column all that frequently, I think that is a good thing for the Titans, because if they don't win the division, it will be to the Jaguars. And then you look at the wild card picture, and the Ravens are expected to be there. So when a bottom-feeding team like the Colts can get one over the Ravens, a team the Titans might be jockeying with in the wild card, in the wild card picture, I think Titans fans are going to sleep okay with that one.
Yeah, 2-1 Colts. Yeah, I'm not worried about it.
It's not sustainable.
And then Houston defeated Jacksonville, which was kind of a surprise to me, at least. Problems in Jacksonville. A 1-2 start for the Jags after a lot of offseason hype for them. They're 1-2. The Titans are 1-2. The Texans now 1-2, and the Indianapolis Colts are at 2-1. So probably a positive. At what point would you be worried about the Colts?
There's not one. I'm not worried about the Colts.
You're so anti-Colts here.
Jonathan Taylor makes things a little interesting, but they won today because Gardner Minshew played. Anthony Richardson still got a lot of growth.
Very interesting for them, though, that moving forward, like if this division is bad and they're playing okay, but they're clearly playing better ball, because, right, what is the word? Richardson missed this week. Could he miss next week too? And if you start winning games with Gardner Minshew, do you go there? Where is Jim Irsay on that? He makes all the decisions. So where is he at as far as winning games versus the quarterback that I just drafted? I don't know.
Yeah, Jack has no logic. I just explained exactly what I was thinking. So if you can't keep up, just say that. I'm not really that worried about Indianapolis, because they're not, pushing for a play. They care more about what Richardson looks like this year than where they finish in the AFC South and in the wild card picture.
Which is fair. When you're one of those bottom teams in the league, it is more about the quarterback that you draft.
On the priority list across the league, most teams at the top will have make the playoffs. The Colts do not have that up at number one. They have find out if Anthony Richardson is good.
Yeah,
at their number one priority.
Colts host the Los Angeles Rams next week. They win that game, they would come to Nissan. I believe they're at Nissan Stadium, right? Or no, Titans are going on the road to Indy as well. Titans would be going there to meet a 3-1 Colts team. Are you scared of the Colts if they're 3-1 and beat the Rams next week?
No, I think the Titans have the better roster. That's a game that the Titans should win. You look at this division before the season, and
that's one that you chalked up as like you got to beat the Colts and Texans.
4 wins right there between those two teams.
Yeah.
Exactly. You got to beat the rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah. All right. That's all we got today for our post-game show. Obviously, a lot of stuff to talk about throughout the week. So keep it dialed in. Buck Rising tonight for A to Z Sports Primetime. We will have the morning show tomorrow morning with Austin Stanley and Zach Bingham. I'm at Titans at 2 p.m. tomorrow, right after Mike Vrabel's press conference, to recap whatever he has to say for himself for this atrocious performance. So keep it with A to Z Sports. Articles coming out on atozsports.com. Check out the Tighten Up podcast. Just good content and a lot of topics to cover because the Titans never fail to surprise us or give us more things to be upset and analyze. So thanks for keeping it with us here today, guys. Keep checking out for all that good content throughout this week. We'll see you.